Hey, and welcome everybody. This is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is In God We Still Trust. And this is part 2 of our series on what is socialism. This is an amazing thing, guys. If you were here the first part 1, you got something. You got an earful. I mean, you really did. It was probably more than you expected, and I hope that I hope you got something out of it. I really do. Well, we're on part 2 now, you guys, and I cannot wait to get into it. So hold on tight, folks. We'll be back in just a second with part number 2 of what is socialism. This is Pastor Sherman Ray. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, folks, we are back. This is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is part number 2 of what socialism is. And, I was doing many of you probably caught us on the first part of this. Excuse me. And I had this conversation with ChatGPT. Zoran Mamdani was just about ready to clinch the New York City mayoral race, and I started to ask myself, really what is socialism? Because we've heard a lot about it, and many of us heard about democratic socialism, we talked about communism, we talked about all these other things, but really, what is socialism? And so, if you're like me, I had to go Google it to make sure that I had it all down, because even though I've been in politics for many years, it's still, some things are just, you want to get it down. And so I'm gonna read the definition of socialism. We're on part number 2, but I really think that we should just have a refresher really quick and to talk about what socialism really is. So socialism is an economic and political system where the means of production, factories, farms, energy, and healthcare, etc., are owned or heavily controlled by the government or the community as a whole, rather than by private individuals. And that was how we got the show started. So basically, Zoran Mamdani, who says he's a democratic socialist, he's saying that he's a democratic socialist, and that's what he's going to espouse for New York City, where we live under a capitalist, a constitutional republic with a capitalist form of economy. Socialism is something totally different. So part number 1, if you want to go back and check that out, we talked all about why is capitalism and socialism compatible. And we talked all about that, folks. But we want to get in, and so you got to go to part number 1 to go check that out. And you can check that out on our website at God We Trust, or GodWeStillTrust.org, GodWeStillTrust.org, and you can check that all out. Or you can go on our YouTube channel, which many of you are watching right now. We'd love for you to watch that. But we wanted to go into part number 2, and part number 2 is talking, and I asked Karl Marx, or I asked ChatGPT, who is the one who started socialism? And this is what we're going to talk about today, and really and as Christians, is this something that is going to involve our lives, okay? So, part number 2. Excuse me, once again, pardon me. Part number 2 is a follow-up question to ChatGPT was, who started socialism? And the answer to that was the father of socialism. The title most often goes to Karl Marx, and I mentioned him. From 1881 to 83, he lived. He's a German philosopher. He's an economist and political theorist who co-authored the Communist Manifesto in 1848 with his sidekick Friedrich Engels, while others before him had proposed utopian versions of communal living, like Charles Fourier and Robert Owens. Marx gave socialism its ideological teeth by turning it into a theory of history and class struggle. So Marx turned what some people thought would be kind of a utopian world, where we all live together, kumbaya, that kind of stuff, into history. It's a struggle about history, and it's about the struggle between this class and that class. Marx's central idea, and we've got a lot to cover here, guys, so I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can, but try to be as diligent on this as I can. And where we get Marxism, his central ideas, he believed that all history is a story of class conflict. It's all about class conflict. The rich, the bourgeoisie, exploiting the poor, or the proletariat. Private property, he believed that private property and capitalism were the root cause of inequality. Wow, that means you buying your house and you're the reason why there's inequality in this world. He also believed that the solution was a revolution that would abolish private ownership, leading to a classless, stateless society, which he called communism, the final stage of socialism. Maybe some of you, it might have gone by you some, okay? He says that the solution was a revolution. Remember, all these guys that keep going out, Zoran Mamdani's all talking about a revolution. We have to have a revolution, okay? Well, this is what he's talking about. A revolution that would abolish private ownership, which he keeps talking about right now, leading to a classlessness, okay? A stateless society, what he would call communism. That's what Marx was going at. And that is the final stage of socialism. And I want you to understand this, guys. The final state of socialism is communism. His famous line summed it up. From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. And that was his famous line. So if you hear that, folks, you're hearing something right out of Karl Marx. And it goes even further. Let's keep going, you guys, okay? The spread of Marx's influence, Marx's writings became the blueprint for many socialist and communist movements around the world. It just wasn't in Germany that he was trying to push this, okay? It spread around the world. And I bet you can't guess the places where it ended up at. That's right. Stalin and Lenin in Russia, the Soviet Union. It also moved to Mao Zedong in China. It also moved to Fidel Castro. You know, that place where everybody wants to go to. China, or to Cuba. Pol Pot in Cambodia. Each adapted Marxist theories, often replacing workers' revolution with authoritarian regimes that controlled nearly every aspect of life. Political, economic, and even religious. And that's really where we're trying to get to, folks, here, is that they're trying to control every aspect of your life. Because it starts out very nice. Hey, guess what? Inequality, let's have equity, let's have equality, okay? Revolution is what they say. We're gonna make sure everybody's got what they need, folks. It's gonna be so kumbaya. But eventually, it becomes a stranglehold over society. The result was not equality, but oppression, scarcity, and loss of liberty. Exactly the outcome America's founding fathers sought to prevent. So I want you to understand something, folks. Zoran Mamdani's, the socialists that are trying to weasel their way into American society, the very thing that our founding fathers sought to get rid of and not have our country go to is exactly what the people of New York just voted for. These mindless simpletons who decided, guess what? We want, yes. Then the guy says democratic socialist. I want you to understand something. Just like Barack Obama, who said that I'm going to fundamentally change America, and he did. Zoran Mamdani is not a liar. You voted for him and you gave him a mandate to begin to implement socialism in the richest city in the nation, the most important city in the country. New Yorkers voted for that. And he's going to do it, folks. And once you get a taste of that, I hope you don't come running to places like Florida or Texas, trying to run away from what you've unleashed here on America. because it's going to spread. Let's go one more. Let's do a couple more things here, folks, and we'll take a real quick break. Okay, why Marxism and American principles clash? Why did they clash? Okay, Marx saw religion as an opiate of the masses, something to be eliminated. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop here, folks, because I'm going to spend some time on this, and I don't want to go over this too quickly, but you have got to hear this. This is Pastor Sherman Ray for In God We Still Trust, folks. We'll be back in just a second, but you do not want to get away from this, folks. This is important. This is so important about what Marxism and what socialism actually is going towards, okay? We'll be back in just a second. All right, folks, we are back. This is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is In God We Still Trust. I hope you guys are having a great time today. This is part number 2 of our series on what is socialism, and I hope that you guys are getting something out of this. This is probably the most important thing that we could be talking about at this time in our nation's history, because the people of New York, and it looks like the people of Minneapolis, people in Seattle, excuse me, they're looking to vote into authority, into places where they're going to be able to influence our country. Not just crazy people, socialists, who are coming here smiling. Zohar Mamdani, that was his thing. Just smiling all the time. So this is part number 2. We're talking about what socialism is, because I don't think a lot of people really understand what we're talking about here. I really don't. Let's continue our conversation here. Why Marxism and American principles clash? Why do they clash? Well, Karl Marx, as we talked about in the first section, or the last section here, Marx, who was the man credited with developing socialism, and which is obviously communism, he believed that he saw religion as an opiate of the masses and something to be eliminated. And I don't know if the people who are voting for socialism understand it, but that's what they're voting for. Eventually, it's going to be the elimination of religion as we know it. Okay, and it's going to be this is something we cannot live with, because guess what? If you eliminate a religion in America, you don't have America anymore, because that is what makes America what it is. The freedoms that we get, the inalienable rights that we have, come from God, and that allows us the freedom to do whatever we want in this country without the boot of government coming down on us. And socialism looks to eliminate that, which means you are not going to have the freedoms you think you're going to have. They're going to be wiped out, because now your rights are going to be replaced by government. The U.S. sees faith as foundational to moral order and freedom, just what I just said. Okay, that's foundational to this country. Faith is foundational to moral order and freedom. Marx called for abolishing private property. America was built to protect private property. Okay, that's what it was built to protect. Marx sought government ownership of production. That means, guess what? The government owned the factories. The government owned, NASA. Government owned Apple. Government owned IBM. Government owned everything. Your shoe store. Government owned all that stuff. The means of production. Government owned all that stuff. Our system, the American system, why there's a clash between them, is our system values free enterprise. We do everything we can. As we have the Small Business Administration. What does their do? Their job is to hand out money to help even more businesses open up. We're looking at right now, President Trump is looking at trying to bring all that business in the factories back to America so private individuals can produce, chips and medication, everything. Not the government, but private individuals do it. And they're doing everything they can to bring all that stuff back to America. So while socialism and communism share roots in Marx's philosophy, the American vision, one of faith, you can write it down, faith, family, freedom, self-governance, stands in direct opposition to his materialistic worldview. Marx believed in everything is under the government, and American capitalism believes totally opposite. It's about the individual, it's about your own freedom, and we protect that right to do that. So in summary, the father of socialism, Karl Marx. His key partner was Friedrich Engels. Their major work was the Communist Manifesto. Okay, so all you people in New York, now you know who you voted for and why you voted for them. Okay, their core goal was to end capitalism, private property, to create a classless society. That's what Zoran Mamdani, you hired him to do, to get rid of your ability. I can't imagine these guys now, these little knuckleheads that are going to colleges, they're going to these schools in New York, and they find out, wow, you know, that rent freeze and everything else, well, that means I can never own a building like that, because there's just no way I can't do that, because I'm a socialist now. The conflict with America, Marxism rejects God-given rights. It rejects God-given rights. It rejects private ownership, and it rejects individual liberty. That's what you voted for, New York, and that's what you're going to get. But you can stop this, guys. You really can. We got so much more to talk about this, guys. We're going to talk in this a little bit more about socialism, because you really need to know a little bit more about it, guys. I don't think you really got it yet, guys. So in the next section, we're going to talk a little bit more about socialism. Guys, stick around. This is Pastor Sherman Ray for In God We Still Trust. We'll be back in just a minute. Hey, and welcome back, folks. This is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is In God We Still Trust. Hope you're enjoying this, folks. I really do. This is a timely show, folks, where we're going to be talking about, what is socialism? Really, what is it? Who got it started? What does it entail? We're talking all about this. And so I had a conversation with ChatGPT, and Chat, I'll tell you, there a lot of people can say a lot of things about ChatGPT, but sometimes it goes. Wait a minute, what are they people doing? Because guess what? Chat even knows that Marxism, socialism, communism is going to be the end to all that development. It's going to be the end of all of it. Because guess what? The government's going to tell you when and why and how you can do all these things. Okay. So once again, I was asking ChatGPT what is socialism? Who started it? Is it compatible with the American form of government? And it said no, absolutely no. Under no circumstances is it. This last section we talked about, we found out who actually started socialism. But we need to go a little bit deeper. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about socialism and why it is so bad. Vladimir Lenin, who was a socialist, he was talking about socialism and religion in a book in 1905. He says, "We must combat religion. This is the ABCs of all materialism and consequently Marxism." He was saying we got to combat religion. That's what socialism's all about, guys. It's really kind of hard to do that in a society that is a Judeo-Christian laid out society. Everything that we have in America is Christian. You can't get away from it. It's on our money. It's in our policies. It's in our laws. It's what we do. If you handshake people, guess what? Why you do that? It's because it was in the Bible. Okay, there's so many things. That's why there was a guy who, we're not going to go through the whole thing here now, but that's what American exceptionalism is all about. It's because religion and government are intertwined in America. It's exceptional in all of history. And yet these socialists are, no, we got to get rid of that. So let's talk about the heart of Marxist socialism. Okay, Karl Marx himself was very clear at this point. In his worldview, religion and faith stood in the way of a socialist and communist ideal. Can you imagine that, folks? We stand in the way of Zohar Mamdani. He says, I'm a Muslim. I'm a proud Muslim. And he stood up there in his acceptance speech and he said something in Arabic and he quoted some Arabic guys. And then he says, hey, and part of what he said was, we're proud Muslims. And I'm going, well, you guys do know that the only reason why you have the freedoms to do what you do is because you live in a Christian nation. Because you cannot do this in Arabic countries. You cannot do this in India. You cannot be a Christian and freely worship the Lord in China. You can't do this thing. You can't do it in Russia. Okay? But you can do it here in America. And you're talking about how you want to work and live in America. Okay? We allow you to do that in America because of our form of government. And you want to tear it down. I don't know what you can get at this. Karl Marx said, guess what? That in his worldview, religion, faith stood in the way of a socialist and communist ideal. He famously called religion the opiate of the masses. We talked about this before. Not because he thought it was evil in the moral sense, but because he saw it as a comfort that kept people from rebelling against what he believed was their oppression under capitalism. He believed that people who were going out and making a buck for themselves and being able to freedom to get up every morning and go out and run their business, he said, you didn't realize how bad you were being oppressed because you had that freedom to go out there and do that and to build a business and, maybe be like, what's the guy's name who did Amazon? I forgot the guy's name now. That guy started out as nothing, and now he's a billionaire. But he was oppressed. He didn't realize how oppressed you really were. Marx believed that once economic systems changed and that workers' paradise was established, religion would simply fade away because people would no longer need it. Wow. I pray that never happens. So yes, the logical conclusion of Marxist socialism is a society without religion. My question to ChatGPT was, is the end goal of socialism and communism the eradication of religion? And it says yes. The logical conclusion of Marxist socialism, is a society without religion, because its foundational is materialism, not faith. In Marx's eyes, God was a competition to the state's authority. Underline that. God was a competition to the state's authority. In Zohar Mamdani's eyes, okay, the Democrat socialist that he is, faith, God is a competition to his authority, to the state's authority. And he has not turned yet, but that's exactly what he's going to do. It might be a couple of years from now, okay? But he's going to eventually change. And then you New Yorkers, you gave him carte blanche. You said, yes, do what you want to do. Give us some free buses. Yeah, give us a couple of new stores or something like that. And you gave him you gave him a way to do it. How has this played out? How has Marxism, socialism played out in history? Every time a nation has moved from socialism towards full communism, okay, because that's what's going to happen in New York, the results have been suppression of religious freedom. I'm going to say that again. Once you move from socialism to communism, and it's a progressive thing. That's why they call them progressives. Okay, they went from being Democrats to democratic to then they went to progressives. Now they're socialists. Now they're moving towards communism. They're going to eradicate religion. They're going to eradicate, and they're going to do what they do. In the Soviet Union, I underlined this. Churches were closed. Bibles were banned. Priests were imprisoned. Churches were closed. We saw that during COVID. That was just a precursor, you guys. Churches were closed nationwide. Guess what? You could be a drug dealer. You know, you could do all kinds of things that way, and that's fine. But churches nationwide were closed. Bibles have been banned already. Nationally, that started in like 74. And something that was normal in schools, now if you see a Bible now, oh, that's very rare. If you see a Bible in school, and you better not post the 10 Commandments anywhere near a kid. It's already started, you guys. The only thing they've not done yet, they've not started killing men like me, pastors, priests, people of the cloth. In China, religious gatherings were outlawed, forced underground, with the state promoting atheism as their official policy. And where have you heard that from? Well, you hear that from the Democrat Party. You definitely hear that from... Now, there are Democrats who say, oh, yeah, I'm a Christian, let's kill those babies. Right? But they're pushing. There's groups in the Democrat Party right now, the far left of the Democrat Party, and they're the people for the American way, the people for separation of church and state, the people for no Bibles in the public square. All progressive Democrats. And I would say they're socialists. The state promoting atheism as their official policy. In Cuba, religious leaders were monitored. Gosh, it sounds like something that's already going on right now in America. And the church's influence was replaced with loyalty to the revolution. Okay? Yeah, if you're good with the party, then we'll be all right. Okay? That sounds like a lot of black churches right now. Because guess what? They toe the party line. But if you're an evangelical white Christian and you're, made a part of some major church, they are all over you. As a matter of fact, I believe during the Biden administration, there were so many Christian groups that the IRS went after them. And that's because they would not toe the party line. Why do they do this? Because faith teaches allegiance to a higher power than government. And that's something no totalitarian system can tolerate. I'm telling you, folks, we are right there right now. We are there right now. And I can't tell you how much that this kills me, but we've got to do something as a people to push back on this. We cannot allow this. Let's talk about America, the contrast in this, okay? When we come back, folks, we're going to talk about the contrast of what America is compared to what we see, communism, socialism, Zoran Mamdani, what he thinks America should be like. This is Pastor Sherman Ray for In God We Still Trust, folks. We will be back in just a minute to talk a little bit more about this. Stay tuned. All right, this is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is In God We Still Trust. We're talking about what is socialism. Really, what is socialism? I know we're going really long on this show here, folks. We've just barely scratched the surface, but I've got to get some of these things in here before we end today. We're just going to go. I think we'll go just another 5-10 minutes. Give me 5-10 minutes at the most, folks, and we'll actually have this next section done. Okay, but I encourage you, folks, if you missed the first part where we kind of talked about socialism, what it is, the definition, everything else, listen to part 1 of this broadcast, and you will get that also. You can also write to me. Just go and write to us at In God We Still Trust 1 at gmail.com. That's In God We Still Trust 1 at gmail.com. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about. So in this last section, we talked about what how socialism is played out in history and what the overarching goal is, and that's to eliminate religion. But what about America? I mean, how does America feel about this whole thing with getting rid of religion in society? Okay, America, United States was built on the exact opposite premise of getting rid of religion, folks. And we've talked about this over and over and over again, but I think some people really need to get this down in their spirit. We are endowed by a creator. Can you say this? We are endowed by our creator with certain unalienable rights. Okay, it is written into our founding documents, guys. Okay, that single sentence from the Declaration of Independence puts God above government and makes the state answerable to moral law, not the other way around. Okay, we are endowed by our creator with certain unalienable rights, guys. The rights we have are from God. They're not from government. Okay, government needs to let us know why we don't have that right. Okay, it's not the other way around. Okay, I have a right to live and breathe, and I have a right to. There's so many different rights I have. The government has got to tell me why I shouldn't have that right, because I didn't. These are not rights that were given by government; they were given to me by God Himself. I have a right to own my own business. I have a right to own my own home. I have a right to make as much money as I want or as little as I want. I have those rights to do it. Okay, I have a right to have 2 kids, 4 kids, 8 kids, whatever I want. Okay, or no kids at all. It is not up to the state to tell me what I can or can't do. I have a right to live in California, New York, wherever I want to live. The state does not have the right to tell me where I can or I can't not live. I've got a right to marry who I want. I have a right to, practice religion I want. The state has to tell me why I don't have that right, and they cannot just arbitrarily take that away. Under socialism, it's a totally different thing, guys. They have the right to do that because that's socialism. And Zoran Mamdani is set. He told everybody, he goes, guys, that's just the way I am. Under the guise of, but there's not enough housing in America, in New York. Okay, I get it. Okay, that still doesn't mean that you can go along and just tell everybody what they can and can't do. America's founding fathers, they understood that freedom requires faith, because only a moral people can govern themselves responsibly. Okay, that's why the founding fathers, even the more secular ones, insisted that religion and virtue were indispensable to liberty. They're indispensable to liberty. You can't get rid of it. And boy, you've got to go back to some of the stuff. Maybe we should go back over that again, talking about virtue and liberty and how they're a prerequisite to having freedoms that we have. Okay, as John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other people. That's why, guys. Here's the interesting thing about it is that when you were a child growing up in America back in the 1700s, okay, 1600s, 1800s, there was one book that was always on your desk, okay, and that was this. It was a Bible. Okay, why was there this book on your desk? Well, so that you could understand being moral, how you could understand being a moral people. Okay, the other book was this book, and I just happen to have it here. Okay, and it's called the New England Primer. Okay, and the New England Primer has in it basically Bible verses to teach you how to do your ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. Okay, and let me read one things out of you. Okay, and it says something like, I'll just turn to any page. Okay, the divine song of praise to God for a child. Okay, this is what everybody read. It didn't matter what grade you were in. You read this stuff right here. I mean, but this is what the kids learned from. Okay. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A was for Adam, B was for the Bible, that kind of stuff. That's what they learned. They learned their ABCs through a New England Primer, and they didn't have these big history books, and they didn't have all this other stuff that, these smarty pants. And they had a Bible, and why? Because out of the Bible are all the knowledge you need for governance of a people. Okay? It tells you what a good leader is, what a bad leader is, what good laws are, what bad laws are, and that's what it was. But over the years, progressives, Democrats, have tried to eradicate the Bible out of every phase of American life. Why is that? Because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what right and wrong is in this world. As a matter of fact, they want to make sure you don't know what right and wrong is. And if you don't, because guess what? If you have a people who don't know what right and wrong is, you can control them. You can tell them that a girl is supposed to be a boy and a boy is supposed to be a girl, that it's all right to be unfaithful and all these other crazy things. It's very easy to control people like that. And when somebody comes in who runs as a socialist, it's easy. All he has to do is get on TikTok, and people are so fooled that they just vote for a guy. That's the problem with taking the Bible out of American life. Let's continue on, you guys. Here's the bottom line. Okay? Here's the bottom line. Socialism and communism eventually want to push God out of society. Not at the start, though. Okay? But always by the end. Okay? Not by, this is ChatGPT telling me. It goes, yeah, they won't start out that way. No, they won't start out that way. Matter of fact, they'll start out telling you, oh, everything's fine. Yeah. Okay? He's a wolf. Socialism is the gateway drug to communism, which is the gateway drug to getting religion out of society. That's exactly what it is. This is great, folks. Okay? In short, the ultimate goal of Marxist socialism, is the end of religion, because it replaces God with government. That's what it is. And that's exactly what it is. That's part two, guys. I mean, you've got to get... I really believe that this is going to be something that's going to change people's minds about who they just voted for, guys. And hopefully it will change your mind about who these people in Seattle are going to vote for, or the people up in Minnesota, okay, or Minneapolis. Because now you've got a bunch of Muslims up there. You've got people trying to influence us in Texas. These Muslims are coming in, and not only they are bringing Sharia law, but they're bringing what they believe is their brand of socialism and communism into our land. The Bernie Sanders of this world. Bernie Sanders is the Pied Piper of evil. And he's got AOC, Ilhan Omar, and all this cabal of Muslims and this cabal of socialists that are trying to change America from the inside out. Okay? And it's a slow thing. It's a progressive thing. They won't start out as that way, okay? They'll come out and they'll go, oh, yes, let's give you free this and free that. Let's free this, until you're on that machine so much that you cannot live without it. And that's a danger. Anyways, this is part two of what is socialism, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this. I cannot wait to get started with part number 3. We'll do that tomorrow. This is something that we need to get a hold of before it turns into something crazy. It's been Pastor Sherman Ray for In God We Still Trust. Thank you guys once again for being a part of the broadcast. We'll see you again tomorrow for more of In God We Still Trust. Bye-bye.